translucent. Maybe I don't need any lights. Maybe I don't need any lights. I'm going to give this a minute and let people pop in. I'm going to be working on something while we talk, but I'm going to give everybody just a minute to pop in. I look like death today. I don't know. I slept really hard last night. I think that's why I look so pitiful. I slept good. I slept really hard. So if anybody has been watching, the Boomadal has already been claimed. The first of my Boomadals. I had a hair tie around my hand. Look what it did to my hand. And it wasn't there for just a minute. That hair tie. That's so strange. The Boomadal has already found his home. He's already been adopted. So I don't know if everybody who kind of got to see him. But I've got him here to share with you before he gets packaged and mailed off. He was a lot of work. That just looks like a lot of... I don't like the way that looks. If you wonder what I'm working on right now, I'm working on a little lion for Sabrina. And where I'm at in the pattern, I gave him big, huge, green, sparkly glitter eyes. And then I've only put his ears on, so I still like his tail and all his mane and his nose and his mouth and all that. And it looks kind of like a little Pokemon alien right now. Doesn't he? He kind of looks like a little Pokemon alien right now. It just struck me funny when I looked down there in my lap. I was like, he looks like a little alien. So I've got to put his muzzle and his nose and his mouth on, all his mane and his tail. And he just looks, at this point in the pattern, he looks really funny. So I wanted to share that with you. I know that a lot of y'all came here, you want to see the Boomadal. So here is the finished Boomadal. Say hi. This is the finished Boomadal, even down to his little shoes that you can take off and put back on. His little sweater, his little hat. Yes, he has a full head of hair. You have to put his little... All his clothes are made like clothes, except for the sleeves are part of his arms. But everything else is made like actual clothes. So I made the doll and then had to make his clothes. And so he was a little... I think there's a way that I probably could have worked the sweater into his torso. But I think it looks better that he actually has clothes on. So his breeches, bless his heart, go way up to his belly. I'm sorry. But he's a cute little doll. You know, and oh my gosh, I had some hours into this one. I had over 21 hours in this one by the time I got done. I was estimating the other day when I was talking, I was counting. I had well over 21 hours. Of course, I wasn't feeling well half the time when I was crocheting him, and it was a new pattern, so I was slow. So I probably will speed up now since I've made it one time. But I think he's flipping adorable. You finished painting the ceiling? Did you go live? Oh, now I'm going to have to check that out. I'm really tickled with how this pattern worked out, though. And he's going to be going to Charlie. So thank you, Charlie. Now, he sold really quick. And I know that a lot of y'all are like, but I wanted a Boomadal. Now, the dolls take me a huge amount of work. And I don't want to sit down and make one if I don't know that it's going to go anywhere. So what I think I'm going to do is either let you prepay or at least throw a deposit so that I know you will come back and buy them. And I don't mind to work for hours on something that I know is going to go somewhere. I just don't want to have 50 boomas sitting in my living room staring at me. That would be kind of weird. It's just a little weird, just a little bit. I like to watch people that paint or clean rugs. I don't know what there is. I don't know what maybe it's just because they're finishing a task. I like that. A lot of people like that. A lot of people like to watch people clean. I don't mind to watch people clean. It gives me ideas when I'm cleaning. Isn't he cute? I was just really tickled with how this Booma doll ended up. A lot of work, tiny, tiny, tiny hook. The only thing I don't like about the pattern is you don't stuff the arms, because if you did, they would obviously be out to here. I mean, honestly, they would. But what I may do next time is make them just a hair bigger, and then just lightly stuff them. The only thing you do is you put a little bit in the hands. But I think next time I'll make the pattern just a little bit bigger in the arms and just barely stuff his arms. But I thought he was cute. Just for me. So some people do like that though. You never know. You may start one of those channels that people watch as they go to sleep. I mean, it might be quite popular. Never can tell. I just think he turned out super, super, super cute. So I may do another one, and then the Sabrina doll is it's been purchased by someone who actually is foreign, and it's going to go through somebody to go to her. And we're having a little bit of a problem with Etsy with the payment because it's a international payment. But I think it's just a glitch. I think it's just a hiccup from Etsy, and so we're going to try to go ahead and get her en route here as soon as possible as well. He's cute. I really thought he turned out super, super cute. I was tickled with him. And the other thing I'm making right now is a possum bag holder for like your plastic bags you get from like Walmart and grocery stores and stuff. So I'm making one of those that it hangs upside down, and you stuff the bags in its butt, which I find hilarious. You stuff the bags in its butt, and then when you are ready to get a bag, you get the bag out of its belly, out of its pouch, which I thought was very cute. And I don't have a pattern. I'm just making it on the fly. I had a friend ask for one, and I was like, yeah, I can do that. So I'm making one of those, and we will see what it ends up looking like. Now, there's probably no idea what it will end up looking like. And I'm also trying to do a lion's mane for the first time, and I don't particularly care for the stitch that you have to make it. So that's what I'm having problems with. Also, people is all over the internet talking about Trump's body language when he's talking to that Macron guy from France. I went and watched it. I don't know. He just looks tired to me, or maybe not completely interested in what's being talked about, which could potentially be the problem. I know that France and then the whole Candace Owens thing there for a while got kind of tedious and boring for our government, and I can understand why a lot of people worried about something that didn't even concern them. It boggles my mind when people are so concerned about somebody else, and what they've got going on in their breeches. I have just never in my life been that concerned with somebody in that way. I don't know. Maybe I'm the strange one, and I just, not concerned about things apparently I should be concerned about. I don't know. Still got some people on the internet trying to freak out over the alien thing, and I'm sitting here going, listen, with all the crap that our government has pulled and done and said and lied about, and really, you're gonna this is your hill. to defend? Really? I really don't like this stitch, y'all. It's really, my hands don't want to do it. But, we'll make peace with it and go on, I guess. I just still think there's an easier way to do this. There has got to be an easier way to do this. But it's like, really, this is your hill you're going to die on. The government, you think they're actually telling you something true? Okay. Let me just go and laugh about that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just, I just think it's silly with everything that we catch our government into to just like believe them now on something that is obviously one of those, topics with And it's not that I don't want to believe them. It's that I just, once bitten, twice shy. I just don't know if I trust them. But now people that have been talking against the government for years are coming out and going, "Oh, but they're not lying to us." I just think there's a better way to do this. I think there's a better way to do this. I'm not happy with that stitch. I'm going to have to research. Let's work on something else. Okay, let me go get my possum bag holder. We'll work on my possum bag holder while I chit chat. We got some news to talk about. I mean, it's not anything bad. I just want to chit chat. Okay. Ow. I plopped harder than I wanted to plop. Okay, we're on to the gray yarn. This is the tail with the hanging. Made a hanging hole in the tail so it could hang off a cabinet door or a nail or whatever she wants to hook it on. So, see, I'm thinking. I got some smarts. Well, that's questionable on a good day. So anyway, the alien thing. Oh, this, our government wouldn't dare lie to us. They're not lying to us. Listen, between tainted mosquitoes, weaponized fleas that they were going to send to Cuba that apparently didn't make it to Cuba, but made it, to the suburbs in Jersey and then henceforth across the entire continent. I just don't think I'm going to believe them. I'm making a possum bag holder. So if you have like excess bags from like the grocery store and you want to save them, it's going to be a possum bag holder. They go in his butt and will come out his pouch. And before that, I was trying to put the mane on a line, but I really don't like the stitch that they're saying for me to use. So I'm going to look up a better way to do that because it ain't making me happy. So it ain't making me happy. Look, everything that our government has been clocked for. And then people are willing because they really want to believe something. I think everybody needs something to distract them right now. So people are like, I really want to believe this. If somebody is truly in that mind space where they really want to believe something and everything else is kind of like it's kind of like they're doom scrolling, and they don't have anything that's bringing them any kind of dopamine or serotonin or anything like that, then yeah, they're probably going to latch on to something that is not kosher in many ways because they need something more than they need the emotion or the feeling more than they need it to be factual. And that might sound Oh, I would never do something like that. A lot of us do it in other ways every day and we don't even think about it. So you just kind of have to be aware that it's something we do without really thinking about it. So I think a lot of Americans, I think what they did was they kind of got us to a place where nothing new, nothing good, there was nothing that we could focus on that was going to make us happy or bring us joy or make us, question it or give us something to really focus on. And then they thought, we'll hand it out when they're about on empty so that they'll latch onto it because they really have nothing else to latch onto. So a lot of people that, maybe they don't have special interests, they don't have excess friends or something, maybe they may latch onto it. I'm making a possum bag holder. I just showed the finished Boomer doll. This is the finished Boomer doll. He's already been adopted. He's going to go live with Charlie. So you did the doll, and then you did all his clothes. The only thing where the clothes are crocheted into is his arms, and even his little shoes come off, and his little toboggan comes off. He's extremely cute. I'm tickled to death with him. I think he turned out super, super cute. I think I also want to try to make a hippie sand. I'm thinking flip-flops on the toes. I'm thinking it would be cute. So we may see, but I'm going to change it up. I don't like to make a doll if I don't know somebody's going to actually purchase it because this is, 20 plus hours of my life right here in these little dolls. It's a lot to ask of me. So if somebody wants a doll, y'all can email me at watersworkload@gmail.com. Or you can go to Dave's Etsy and send a message and say, hey, Dave, I'm interested in getting a doll off Liz. And that way you can always just drop a message somewhere and David will forward it to me and I'll get in touch with you. But, and he doesn't have to sell through Etsy. If you don't have an Etsy and you just want to PayPal, that's fine. That's fine. David doesn't mind. But I do have enough yarn for, I think, 2 more right now on me in my house. So I may make a hippie stand and so we can have a boom, have each little personality that he does. And then somebody asked me to make a biscuits, but I don't know if Biscuits wants me to do that. But Biscuits, if you approve for me to do that, I will take some hair. I won't be like Booma. I will totally give you some hair. Promise. I'm so puffy and swollen today, y'all. I slept so hard last night. I'm not unswollen, and I've done my lymphatic drainage roller and everything on my face. But I think he turned out super cute. The beard was probably, the head and the beard was the most tedious work of it all. Everything else was just normal stitch work, but the hair and the beard and all the embroidery sewing to get the hair onto the head and the beard onto the face. It was a little bit, much. I'm not gonna lie, it was a little bit. Where am I from? I am from Appalachia, the Cumberland Plateau area of Appalachia, which has its own dialect, which is probably why you asked that. So anybody that watches The Mind of Boomasan that is tickled with this little doll and you want one, just get in touch with me. We'll get another one going. I'm not going to make a lot of them because that's 20 plus hours of my life where I could, finish up 4 or 5 something else. And I don't want to donate my life to that. And not know if it's going to go anywhere. Because obviously I don't need multiple Boomasons sitting in my home staring at me, Oh gosh, it's just so, there's such a tiny little light yarn and it's such a tiny hook. Like I used a 1.75 and then between a 1.75 and a 2.75 are the 3 hook sizes I went through the whole time I made it. And so we're just real lucky I didn't, have a crazy attack. My hair is, since I got it cut, it's having a Texas moment wanting to like elevate. I don't know. Don't know what it's doing. Okay, so I'm fixing to make the hole in the bottom. I'm going to do another round. And then I'm going to make the hole in the bottom where you would put the bags. Like after you bring home your excess grocery bags and you need to stuff in your bag holder. I'm fixing to make that here in the next round. I don't want to make it at the super, super very top because I want it hang level and that would mess up with the tail hanging mechanism. But I also am going to put it on the back so that when it hangs, you don't see it. So it doesn't mess up the, if anyone hanging a possum on their wall, you might think is decor. I don't want it to mess up the decor possibilities here with the hanging possum. And for somebody that would put a possum on your wall, I know that sounds funny, but just chill. And if somebody out there wants a possum bag holder, yell at me. They hang down and then their head I kind of attached to where they're kind of looking at you. And so it's like they're really like hanging from a tree looking at you or something. It's going to be cute. It's going to be real cute. I mean, could you imagine me doing like 10 Booma dolls just all in a row and nobody by them, and then I've got a whole little choir of Boomas just staring at me? Y'all, that would send me over the edge. Plus, I'd be looking at like 200 hours worth of work, and I'd be like, probably not my best idea. Not a mental health journey. I did have a good weekend though. Once I got over that Graves attack, I have felt much better increasingly. I'm just still really puffy, but that'll take a few more days, I'm sure, to work out. Did get to see I call him my Bubba from Texas, one of my best friends from high school. He and his wife flew in. And then at the reunion, they pitted husband and wife against each other at, I guess it was like pickleball. I've never played pickleball. I didn't want to play at the end. But it was funny because I was like, listen, you had them, kindly fly in for the 30th reunion. He paid to come in to see us all. Now you're going to hand him something that could ruin his marriage. I was like, that's rude. Because they are super competitive couple. And I was like, this is not going to end well. But it was funny. It was fun to watch. It was sad when we were looking at all the classmates that we had lost, to addiction or health issues. It was sad. 9, 10. I'm chain 10 right then. I'm going to count 10 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'll start in the 11th. And then that will create the hole when he's hanging upside down. That will create the hole where you stuff the bags in after you get home from the grocery store. And it will hang against the wall so that nobody will see it. And the belly hole will too. It's just funny. I just think it's funnier to get it out of his belly than his mouth. Oh, thank you. Tell my heifer I said, hey, heifer, I love you. You're my purse. And anybody that doesn't understand mine and Sabrina's relationship, I just made you go, what the crap was that all about? Tell her lion is almost done. Now listen, I was going to do the mane while I was on the live, but I don't like the stitch they're telling me to use on it. So I'm going to another stitch to use to make the mane because I don't like the way that looks. But where I put big green sparkly eyes on it, and I've got to put the nose still. I like his nose and his tail, his muzzle and his tail and the mane. I stopped at a very funny spot because he looks like a Neopet alien right now. So I've got to add all that, and then I've got to embroider a little green heart on the hip. He stands up. He's one of those freestanding ones. He's cute. He's going to be adorable. Now you have to say it just like I said it. But tell her little line's almost done. I'll probably finish them at some point today or in the morning, and I'll yell at her. I'll send her a message. But I've got to put his nose and his muzzle on, and his mane and his tail. Obviously, he's missing some things that make him look like a lion. But I just thought he looked like a little Neopet, weird Pokemon looking alien thing, and I was like, I'm gonna show this because it's kind of cute. He looks rather strange, doesn't he? But I love those eyeballs. The green sparkly. I love them. I did some face shaping too, so obviously he looks a little strange right now. But it's cute. So you can tell her line to be done at latest by tomorrow. I'm thinking about very soon taking a trip to some grandbabies. I don't get to see him very often, and I want to go see him. And I'm like, can my body hack the trip? Oh no. That's my big thing is after all that big Graves attack, how is my body going to respond? To 9.5 hours in a vehicle. I don't know. That's what worries me. That is what worries me, y'all. So I don't know. I'm thinking about it. Let's see. Oh, what's going on in the world today? The Carmelo Anthony case. Holy crap, man. Can we show our stupidity in any other way? The world is going topsy turvy, and it's not going the way people would usually think. Like there are a ton of people, on Carmelo Anthony's side of things. They're like, okay, that was too much. We're done. And kudos to those people for stepping back and looking at stuff a little bit differently and not just following the narrative, because the media has really, really tried to spin this one out of control. But now I will say that the Metcalf boy's dad that went online the night that the gag order, or the next day after the gag order lifted, because he'd been under a gag order this entire time. Everybody thought he was just a really polite, sweet man, but I was like, his son just got taken away from him for good. No, he's feeling it. And I was like, he's just abiding by the courts right now. Yeah, that's what was going on. But his behavior the day after the gag order was lifted, not a shining example. Not a shining example of love and understanding, which he may not be there yet, and I can understand that. But I don't think we need to add any more gas to the fire. So I don't think the people, really trying to take a racial stance on this need to be given any more ammunition. They're already mad enough. Let's not help people that, ain't working with a full deck anyway. But he certainly could have used better phrasing in his interviews. And, the man has every right to be mad, upset, but if you're going to talk about it on a public consumption level, you want to make sure that number one, you don't discredit what you're going through so that no one listens to you, and number two, that you don't disgrace the memory of the person you're grieving. And while I think there is definitely a discussion and a dialogue to be had on how youth in America, especially across different cultures, are being allowed to grow up in these very unhealthy ways. I'm not sure if we needed to add on he called the young boy a name. And we don't, it was the smartest thing he could have done at the moment. I will say that for everybody upset why this boy did not get on platforms, no. Um, have y'all seen the video? If you were like wondering why he didn't get off scot-free, have you seen the video? Like, there was no provocation. You know, he was asked to leave the tent because, number one, he wasn't supposed to be there. And number two, I guess he looked like he was kind of up to no good while he was, ducking in out from the. They said it was raining, but apparently on the video it didn't look like that's the reason he went under the tent. It looked on the video that he went under the tent just to create an issue. And yeah, of course they're going to say, "Excuse me, get away from me." Smart, but there was really no provocation. And his parents apparently didn't spend any of that GoFundMe money toward lawyers because he ended up with a like. And then after he got sentenced to murder, once you're sentenced, buddy, you belong to the Department of Corrections. At the moment the judge speaks your sentence, you physically become property of the Department of Corrections. Hi, Sal. We got, is it Ariana? I'm about blondes. Ian's making sourdough bread. I've not gotten into that craze yet. My mom makes it sometimes. But then his parents are, like, I don't know, they're trying to capitalize off their son's behavior, which number one is creepy. Number two, they've already gone through a bunch of money. Number three, they have been really ill tempered through the entire thing to the victim's family. And it's like, why are you mad at them? They did not create this situation. Your son was walking around with a dangerous weapon with the intent to use it. And you have to really be careful. Like, listen, teenagers, you have to be careful with the tools that you give a teenager in their life because they don't have the brain capacity to sometimes know when and where and how and why to use them. And so you have to really, it's an individualized basis on teenagers, especially like when you grow up in the country and you teach them to hunt. And, you have to be careful, when you allow that teenager to exercise control over that weapon. Here in the sticks, we all the kids grow up hunting, but that doesn't mean we give them a weapon, a gun, a deer rifle to walk around with. That's stupid. You only use the deer rifle when you're deer hunting. Um, and I'm not understanding. I'm not understanding the culture where you raise kids in an urban environment, yet you arm them like you live on Dr. Moreau's Island with three-headed animals going to eat you. I don't understand that. A child like they're living in the game, Grand Theft Auto. I don't understand that, especially at these young ages. And even more on that, I don't understand the parents that willingly put their children into like some form of, I would call it like custodial enslavement, where they're selling dope or selling weed or defending, a home against a rival gang. I'm like, why would you create that scenario? And if it's already created, why would you willingly join it? I don't know. I've never been there in life, and I don't understand other people that just jump in there and willingly go there. Y'all, it's just, I don't get it. I don't get it. Then everybody's mad about this UFC fight that took place at the White House. Y'all, I mean, weird pastimes. Almost every leader does something that's kind of a niche interest point for them. I don't care. Probably one of the healthier niche interest of a president in the last few decades. I think that needs to get bigger. I'm gonna make him get a little bit fatter as he goes down. So I'm not super upset that they had a UFC fight at the White House. I just, it's America's pastime is baseball and fighting, and it's just we do the extreme sports really well in this country. I understand it either. We just have a lot of people that have apparently a lot of adrenaline that needs to go somewhere else, and so at least they're trying to take it out in a somewhat healthy manner. Not saying it's the most healthy manner, but a somewhat healthy manner. In some kind of competition to where they can still kind of shake hands afterward and go on. But I will say that the guy at the UFC fight that made the statement after the UFC fight about Michelle Obama, not necessary. I think as Americans, one of our hardest lessons to learn is how to edit ourselves. And I'm not saying you should always go through life and edit yourself for others, but like if you're on any kind of syndicated television program or a live stream, you might want to think about how you're projecting. And I just at that point, whether you're somebody that feels, I've got a big calic right there. Whether you're somebody that likes the Obamas or not, at that point, it's not going to benefit you or anyone in this nation to have any kind of jab or smear at them. It's just not necessary. I know. I had a lot of not necessary moments over the weekend. Hey, Clarity, how are you doing? Has everybody here seen the Booma doll? I showed him just a minute ago. I don't care to show him again. I am making a possum bag holder for a friend now. But if you all want one, you can just yell at me. You stuff the bags in its butt. It's going to hang up like this. That's his butt. It's going to hang toward the wall. And then when you get him out, you get him out its pouch and its belly. Tell me that's not cute. That's cute. That's cute. Margaret's in here. I've been wanting one of these for a while, but every time I end up sitting down to make one, it's for somebody else. But I'm freehanding this one, so we'll see if it turns out looking like a possum or not. May have to frog it and start over. I am really though. I am tickled. I am tickled with my Booma doll. Y'all, I'm so tickled with this little doll. 20 plus hours of my life. And honestly, I think he might stand up. Hey, Booma can stand up. But I'm really tickled with this little flipping doll, y'all. He's so cute. And I think I did get a good likeness going on. I looked for a brown variegated yarn that I could use to make the different colors in his beard, but nothing came out right. So here we are. So he's not rocking any grays. You're welcome, Booma. You're welcome. And like me, I'm rocking some grays. Say hi, everybody. Also got Sally in here. We got a whole bunch of people in here. He had a rubber chicken butt bag holder. That's cute. I like his little shoes that you can take on and off. I just know. I just really like this pattern. I wanted like a baggy, oversized feel into his clothes, and this pattern had it. The only thing about this pattern I'd like to improve on is the arms, because you can't stuff them, otherwise he'd be sticking out. Woo, So you only stuff the hands, and his arms are made in, like, the sweater's made as his arms. But everything else, like you make the torso sweater, you make the pant, you make the shoes, you make the beanie, you have to craft his entire beard and then overlay it. So he's a lot of time, a lot of effort, but I really think he's cute. I really think he's cute. And he's got a little bit of a bobble to his head, which I think is adorable. Booma, am I your favorite channel? Yeah, See, he says it. It's got to be true. Makes the hands holding the beard. Put him like that, like, I'm gonna think on that one. I'm thinking about making Hippie Sand next, and making him with flip flops and a bandana and some really loud colored clothes. Hi, hi, hi. See, I get to go home to Charlie. Charlie bought me. Hi, Charlie. But I really think he's cute. I really think 20 plus hours of my life. But I kept him at 60, even though it's ludicrous if you look at the work in him. But it's for our community, so I'm not gonna. That's as much as I think I should charge for him. I know every crusher out there's going, girl. I know, but it's for our community. So I'm just not. He's even got little ties on his shoes. He's got little bows on his shoes. Oh, he's so cute. He's so cute. He's so cute. So if anybody else wants to, see, well, that's okay. You can email me at watersworkload@gmail.com. David's got PayPal. That's fine. We'll work something out. If you want to boom a doll, I'd really rather take prepay or at least a deposit, because my thing is I don't want to spend 20 plus hours making something that is not going somewhere. And I'm not going to take a lineup of deposits, but if a couple of people want one at the same time, I would do a couple at a time, and then I have to catch the next people the next time around. I'm not going to take everybody's money. But my big thing is I don't want to spend 20 something hours on something and not know if it's actually going to go somewhere. Because that's a chunk of my life, and that's 4 or 5 other projects I probably could have gotten done. The concrete plant is working today. We got a concrete plant over the way from us, and I've got all the windows open, and they are just a humming today, just a humming. It's strange. They must have gotten extra orders. So they don't normally. They work half days and then shut down. And then they deliver all afternoon. So that's strange for them to be mixing this late. Has it been raining all day? Yeah, the twins was getting a lot of rain yesterday. It rained here for almost a week. I was fussing because there was no hay. Nobody's hay was growing because it was so dry. We hadn't had rain in forever. And then we just had a week of torrential rain. And now it's now the hay is greened up and it's grown, but nobody can get in to cut it because it's gotten so thick from all the rain that happened at once. Honestly, it's so difficult. I don't think, maybe I've seen 1 or 2 summers in my entire life where the hay was ideal to cut, came in at the right time, didn't have any problems. Maybe a couple summers. That's about it. Problems just exist. So that's where they be turned to the wall, and that's where you stuff them in. And so that hang toward the wall so everybody will be seeing this. And then when he's hanging up, you'll get him out of his pouch. So you'll put your hand in his pouch and pull him out. I'm going to make a hole, and then I'm going to make a flat cover for the hole. So you have to actually put your hand in a pouch. Just to make it, a more sensory event. Creep some people out, I'm sure. And I'm trying to do this in a really small hook so that he stays really tight. So if they need to wash him or something, it'll last longer to be more durable. But I really get back to the Carmel Anthony thing. Sorry, my brain is going in circles today. Get back to the Carmel Anthony thing. If you look, a lot of America is split. So you got the people that are like, hello, the boy killed somebody. Obviously, he was going to prison. And then you've got the other side of, why would they send the boy to prison? It was self-defense, blah, 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 blah. But here's the thing. Everybody that's saying the boy that stabbed the boy and killed the boy was acting in self-defense, they've not seen, you ask them, did you watch the video? Well, no. They've not gotten all the information. And 9 times out of 10, they then turn around and they'll go, well, he was the black boy that dodged under a tent full of white boys. He better have a knife on him. In the news, go on the news this evening, and I'm not being rude. This is factual. This is supported by statistics. This is supported by the Department of Justice Statistics. You can go and look it up if you're not too lazy. Off the top of your head, in news and media today, tell me about one Caucasian male that killed a black man in such a way that the news, must show it. And we're not talking about police, and we're just talking about 2 men. Just 2 men. Beef out of nowhere, and one of them's dead. Think real hard. It doesn't happen that often, does it? No, because statistically, this is sad, but statistically, it goes the other way around. The white people are almost always the victim. And which is funny because we make up like almost 3 times more of the population. You would think, what? Yeah, we make up like almost 3 times more of the population, but we routinely are not the aggressors, and that's just justice system statistics. There, you can go and look all this up. And when we try to stop violence like this, we're like, well, you shouldn't talk about it in a color because you're just racist. I'm not racist. If I want young black men to stop killing people, it's because like literally 80-something% of the time they're killing other young black men. I'm concerned about everyone that is a potential victim, not just one color or creed, everyone. And it's sad to think that the biggest danger that a culture has to themselves is their own young men. And they will still sit back and defend them when their own young men do stupid stuff that hurts their culture. And I'm just like, wake up. Now I've told you, and we didn't handle, because I was a interstate compact officer. My hair is freshly cut and it's got so many cowlicks. I would handle a lot of the people that came from another state, got in trouble in the state that I supervised offenders in, and then had to be sent on the to interstate compact. They got in trouble in Tennessee. They have to then accept their Tennessee sentence, and I have to contact the other state and say, this is actually your guy, but he got in trouble in Tennessee. I'm going to send all the information. You're going to open up a case, and you're going to supervise him as a courtesy for my state, and then we can communicate on this ICAOS database. But he can't travel back to his state till I have all that done, and a travel permit signed, and the other states where he's coming, and they've got him set up to come in and report, because we don't want to lose this person, right? Because he's going to be on supervision. Duh, obviously. So I went to one of my several counties courts, and they had a young black man from the neighboring state, and he had a violent crime. He had like a couple burglaries, and he had an armed robbery that got pled down, and he had a couple of assaults. And so he was going back with supervision that was going to have to follow him. Now listen, we're in Podunk. Why the boy thought to come to Podunk? If you're raising them and you're really telling them they have to be scared of a homogenous white area, why do they continue to come to these white areas and cause crap? Wouldn't that be like a don't come here flashing sign if you were raised and people were saying that to you? I mean, really, wouldn't it? But anyway, I saw this lot. They come and have commissions of crimes here, and then they'd have to stay in that little small country jail until the travel paperwork was done and they could go back. Okay, well, I always tried to get travel permits and everything done. If I got somebody in court, I'd actually excuse myself from court. They could come get me if I was needed after that. And I'd go back to my office and I'd start the documentation and get it sent to the other state so that in hopes I could get that person traveling that day or the next if possible, because lots of times their families come to the court date and they don't have the money to stay a couple of days waiting on paperwork to be approved. So I would think about that and I would always be like trying to get everything approved as quickly as possible so the family wouldn't have to make an extra trip back to another state. And if they chose to stay, they wouldn't have to stay for more than a night. So, yes, I was a nice person. So I go and I start starting this, a whole bunch of paperwork to send to the neighboring state to say, hey, this is your guy. He came here, got in trouble. These are his charges. We want you to courtesy supervise him. This is where he says he's going. This is the phone number. This is contact information. This is where he's going to be living. I want to give this guy a travel permit and set him up with an appointment. Can you give me an appointment date so that he can come in and start seeing you while you investigate all of this? It will get him on the way back home. I started all that. It was like 20 something pages on each person I have to do. So listen, it wasn't like I was doing it out of the kindness of my heart. It sucked to do it, but it needed to be done. So I'm sitting there doing that, and they said, we can't get approval on this until first thing in the morning, but we'll go ahead and get the ball rolling. So I prepped the family and I said they're not going to get approval until first thing next morning. And so it was his uncle that had come down. His uncle said, well, I've got to leave and I don't know who's going to be able to come back for him. And I said, well, I apologize. I tried to get it done today, but the other state does not have a supervising officer to sign off until tomorrow. So after court, and now I've got like 14 more people on my caseload and a bunch of crap I have to do, but I still go to the jail and I talk to this young man. And he's like, I just want out of, Honkyville and all these other words. And I'm like, and I looked at him and I said, that was not necessary. I said, I understand you're uncomfortable here. I said, that's fine. I said, I'm working as fast as I can. And I said, it was my hope to get you on the road today, but they do not have a supervising officer to sign off on the travel plan until tomorrow. I said, it's my hope that tomorrow we'll be able to send you home. He goes, but I ain't got no way to get home tomorrow. I said, well, I'm supposed to call your grandma this evening. And I said, we're going to discuss that. I said, but I just wanted to let you know where I'm at. He offered no thank you. He was hateful. He was conniving. And I was just like, he was acting like he was mad at, having to stay in the jail another night. But I asked the jail, I said, has there been any issues? No, he's doing fine. He's fit right in his pod, having no issues. He's made friends. And I'm like, okay, well, I still try to get everybody home in a timely fashion. So that's fine. I'm still working. And I talked to grandma and I'm like, he's ready to be home. And I said, I can understand he's ready to be home. And she was like, well, she's like, we can't run down to get him. But, she's like, is there a bus they could put him on? And I was like, there is, but I'm not sure if they'll pay the fare. I said, that's, if we want them to pay the fare, it's going to take more days and get that approved. And she was like, well, honey, you're just going to have to do what you can do. He shouldn't have gone there and got in trouble. And I said, I understand that, ma'am. I said, I look at it that way as well. I said, he does seem to want to be home as soon as possible. And I said, I would like to get his supervision started and get him back home. And I talked to her several times throughout this whole event. She was the sweetest woman, and we had a good rapport between us. She was a sweet woman. And so what I did was I got it approved that he could, we could put him on the bus. We could discharge him and put him on the bus. Okay. Had a group that helped people that were coming out of the jail there. They bought him an outfit to wear out of the jail because his clothes were like shredded from he fought with law enforcement. And they were going to buy him clothes to wear home and the bus fare home. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Appreciate your help. And so I go to tell him an update. And I'm like, hey, we've got an update. We're waiting on your travel plan. But upon the travel plan being approved, we'll print it out, come over here. This organization here is going to buy your bus fare. They're also bringing you some clothes to put in your personal effects. So when you are being released, you will have a new change of clothes to wear home, so you don't have to go home in your shredded, tattered clothes. And I said, so I'm just giving you an update on where we are. worried about his tennis shoes and if they were in his personal effects. I said, I don't know. I said, all I know is the jail that your clothes were shredded from the altercation. And I said, we didn't want you going home, something like that. And obviously, you're not in your home state. And this organization's here to help. So that's what we chose to do. And he was like, well, my sneakers better be in my personal effects. And I'm like, tennis shoes would not be on my mind. If I'm getting out of jail and going back home, tennis shoes would not, I would wear flip flops just to get me and go home. So, he was just, I don't know, he cared about things that just did not seem to be fruitful, And we got him out, got him put on the bus. He thanked me for the help. And I was like, I know you don't want to have to stay here overnight again and, out and about. Because I didn't want to have to stay overnight. Number one, not have anywhere to go, wait on the bus. So we coordinated to where the jail held him the night. He got loose. He got discharged at like 7 or 8 a.m. He was on the bus by like 10:30. So it was very easy, for him to just sail right out of here and not really have any time to get in trouble or have a night that he had to worry about trying to find somewhere to stay because we didn't want to put that burden on him. And, he came here and got in trouble immediately. So we didn't actually want to give him free time to get in any more trouble either. So, and I went above and beyond on this, even helping out a little bit with the bus fare because I could also say, well, this is one black man in a very white area, and he probably does not feel comfortable here with all the stories that are told about little, hidey holes in the South. But at the same time, if he doesn't feel comfortable here, why did he come here? So I had a lot of, feelings going on, but I was like, regardless, we're just going to get him home and try to make it as easy as possible. Just get him home. And his grandma was the sweetest woman. She's like, you've done so much. Thank you. You didn't have to. I appreciate this. And she's like, boy needs to learn. And I said, well, hopefully, this lesson will stick, with some of the things he's had to experience this time. He'll think before he makes another mess and has to be held in custody. I said, I hope this works. The moment the boy got home, and I'm not even talking about the next morning, the moment the boy got off the bus and got home with his grandma, he starts calling like the state commissioner, the district directors, everybody he could call, DA's office, to talk about how Honkyville mistreated him. And I'm not even lying, that was his words. And a lot of these calls, when you go in to report stuff like that, they are recorded, and they tell you they're recorded. You can hear grandma in the background going, hang that up, boy. You shut up. You ain't got no right. They were all good to you, boy. You went there and screwed up their community. You shut up, boy. And I'm like, get it, grandma, And so then he was like trying to file a grievance on me and trying to start issues. And I was just like, I don't have time for this crap. I'm too busy. So I didn't really worry about it much. But his grandma was like mad, and she called, apologized. I said, maybe you don't have to do that. I was like, you're not responsible for, his mode of thinking. And, I said, I've had worse things said about me. Don't worry about it. It's like, I'm just glad he's home. Maybe he can get settled in and get the supervision over with and grow up a little bit and hope things work out. And, but he was trying to like tank me. And, just luckily grandma was calling people going, he just needs to shut up. And finally, when they went to like investigate it, he looked at him. I guess grandma had whopped him upside the head with something. And he was like, no, she was really nice. And they were really kind. I just, I got a chip on my shoulder, like my grandma says. And I was like, a chip? You got a freaking 3 rick of wood giant tree on your shoulder, not a chip. Honey, we could build a mansion from the chip of wood on your shoulder. But his first thought was to create a racial issue and get me in trouble rather than say thank you for all the extra work I did, trying to accommodate what I would think is, an irrational fear, but trying to understand how his mind might rationalize it. And I thought, man, I stretched out of my comfort zone, to help. And, and so I don't think I ever went above and beyond on a interstate compact case again in my life because I thought, y'all are just mad anyway. You're mad at the world. Y'all can just be mad at the world. Mad at me too. I don't care. Yeah, exactly. That's what he was. He was terribly ungrateful. And I see a lot of the same mannerisms in this family. This Anthony family. And it's kind of brought all that back to my mind of how I felt those days after. Like, I felt like I was in a twilight zone going, what did he not just experience what I just experienced? Because he has friends in jail he actually kept in contact with. And he had no issues in jail. He had no issues with other inmates. He had no issues with the CEOs. He had no issues with the court, no issues with the DA's office, no issues with the attorneys. He was worried about his sneakers. Listen, I'm not a big footwear person, but whatever. I just did not get it. And I thought, the marker maybe is being placed in the wrong spot for some people in this culture. Maybe they need to reevaluate what they see as important and not important. Because I think maybe it's been set way over here in left field when it needs to come back to center. And then you look at music, we'll look at the music. Music used to dictate important coping mechanism for many people in society. Well, look at the music. Not many coping skills in that music that don't revolve around harming someone else to make you feel better, right? Using a substance to alleviate your own issues without working through them, misusing people, especially women, in poor ways to make yourself feel more powerful, or. And I was like, well, they're going to have to correct this at some point. They're going to have to say, oh, yeah, we swallow that one hook, line, and sinker, and we probably need to work on that. This is something you don't hear from the majority of that side of the fence. Meanwhile, most of the people that are my color that rap are people like Tom McDonald that rap primarily about, trying to create a positive change in the world, or they rap about their country life, or, and so there's just, I don't know. But anyway, to be a smaller percentage of the population, the instances in which they affect the entire population are 3 times higher than other pieces of that pie, larger pieces of that pie. Here we are, we're, the largest group, in this country, but people that look like me do far less damage than one of these smaller groups in the country. And you just have to look at this and go, that's not racist. That's just statistically proven through logged facts. And at some point, they're going to have to deal with the mindset that they have created in a younger generation, which is going to completely continue to roll down the hill into hell if they don't attempt to better themselves and look at people as people rather than targets, or an end, an end to a means, or a means to an end, or a ticket to a cushy life. We're going to have to start looking at each other as people again. And I think the biggest strain in that regard is going to be on the side of the Anthonys and a lot of their supporters. A lot of those people need to start looking at other people in this country as fellow people instead of problems. Because statistically speaking, we ain't the problem. And that's sad to say, but I've worked with felons my whole life. Plenty of stupid people in the world breaking the law. But if we look at the facts behind the judicial system, we can see that it doesn't shake out quite equal across the board. And for that, there is an underlying issue in their community that they're going to have to acknowledge and address. And I don't know if they're willing to do it, because I don't know if they're willing to carry the burden for their people. Because guess what? And I'm just going to say this flat out. It seems like ever since freedom became, the right for all they've done is sit there and want to make someone else pay for atrocities. And here we are, how many generations later, and they still want payment for atrocities. And I'm like, have you been through an atrocity? And they're like, but you don't have forefathers that were slaves. Oh no, I'm part Irish. I have forefathers that were slaves. Oh no, they were, what was it? Basically working for the crown. No, honey, no. They were sent over here because they owed the crown, and the crown told them they were going to work it off. But the crown never paid them, never gave them credit. They were slaves their entire life unless they escaped, just like your people. Just like your people. But then, I get always told, well, you're lying. You're not. You can never understand. Okay, I can understand that no matter what happened, several generations back, I can look at my life and understand that it hasn't really affected me much. I do think we have some cultural and social norms that need to be improved. I don't like how people think everybody in Appalachia is stupid, but I'm not going to go out and harm people over their stupid opinions or their ill conceived thoughts, that they have against groups that they know nothing about. I'm not going to bump into somebody in a parking lot because both of us were staring at our phone and think that the reason they bumped into me was because I looked different than them. I'm probably because we were both looking at our phone and not paying attention to where we were going. It just seems like we trip over the easy, obvious answer and we go straight to animosity. And I'm like, when has this ever been a good thing? And we're starting to see it now in younger and younger kids, especially on that side of the fence. And it concerns me greatly because I had lots of those kids in therapy and in those placement camps as well. And they would walk in with a chip on their shoulder. It behooved me to why their behavior was so aggressive when there was nothing to be aggressive to. They would have been in state's custody for years, some of them, and finally get an option to go to a camp rather than stay in juvie. Oh, okay, listen, I'd take the camp over juvie any day, And they would come there and just immediately, in less than 2 hours, be in a fist fight. And I'd be like, what did y'all create in 2 hours that required fists? So I don't know, and you work so hard with them, and when you see a kid like that struggling, it pulls your heartstrings even more, and you want to fix it, and then you go into a master treatment plan with their parents or with their social worker rep, who apparently also has a chip on their shoulder, and you realize you can't fix anything unless the other participant's willing to even listen. So it was just a bad situation the whole way around, and it was one that I was like, we're gonna have to work and fix this. I had one black lady one day tell me, she's like, well, you don't know what it's like to grow up and hear people constantly talk about how sorry you are, how sorry this side of the fence is, and I was like, really? Have you ever listened to Louis Farrakhan? Because I have. It's not a nice feeling, but I don't think the man's all there, so it really doesn't bother me. And if y'all have not ever heard him speak, y'all need to go listen to him because holy crap, it's bad. I hate touching this thing because it goes crazy, but I've got a message. Oh, I agree. Yeah, this message says the Irish were treated worse. I agree. Oh, I think the Irish has been probably one of the most kicked and tossed around cultures on the globe, and that's why they're so surly and easy to raw. I mean, look what's going on now. Um, I'm not going to get mad at you for having a culture you want to maintain or not forget. That's fine. I have that stuff too. But I'm not going to use mine to create social unrest. But I think a lot of this, and you may disagree. I think a lot of this is the government. The government's been, hey, they've been left holding the bag for a lot of bad crap the last several years. They've been responsible for a lot of bad crap the last several years, especially since 2020. And now we're looking at, those files they don't want to release and all that crap. They want to, they're still redacting them to where it's not to our satisfaction, or they'll just point blank cover up people that we know are in cahoots, and it's a bad feeling. It is a bad feeling. And I think lots of times the reason that they keep us in such a state of irritation is because if we all were not fighting stupid qualms between each other, we would have 5 minutes to talk to each other about what's been going on at a government level and go, we should probably get together and go address that. The government doesn't want that to happen. And so I think this whole issue, when they see a story that they can milk, I think they use it to create animosity between the races so they can keep that card going, so they can keep perpetually pulling people around by their nose, by their feels, and keep that animosity and potential race war just fanning the flames when they need to, so that we can't have the time to worry about truly important things because we're all stupid enough to take the bait. And so I sit here and watch this man, and yes, he just lost his son, and he should be angry. He's probably doing better than I'd be doing, honestly. But at the same time, I wouldn't go online and talk about it unless I was prepared to talk about it in a productive manner. Because listen, I want to be productive. If I've lost a child, I want to be productive. I don't want to have lost my child so that I can say stupid crap. If my child's gone, I want to say something that's going to help impact the world in a positive manner. He apparently did not have that concern. And I should have done, I'm just going to throw out, should have done better. But I can also understand why he's upset. But at the same time, underneath all of this, I think a lot of it is fanned by the government for power, the ability to manipulate. And a lot of us are catching on to it now. And we're like, we're not going to sit down and take this anymore. We're done. And that's good. We need to be talking about this. We need to be addressing this. We need to address why when I walk down a Nashville street, literally, when I've gone to Nashville, like going to concerts or something, literally the people that will say nasty things, yeah, it's not nice. It's not nice. And I had to take a boy once for a psych eval down into Nashville, and he was a young black man. And because I was sitting at McDonald's, because I had to stop and feed the boy, we were gone for like 10 hours that day to a psych eval. I had to stop and feed the boy. We were sitting in a booth at McDonald's together talking. And several of his people, as they identified themselves, were wondering what he was doing with a white woman. Well, he's in state's custody. Therefore, he's in my custody because I'm an employee of the state that is housing him. But we're having a decent lunch and we're talking and we're getting along just fine. What's the problem, That bothered me. Like, I would never in a million years see, if I saw a white woman with like a young black girl, I would never go up and go, "Why are you with her?" I'd be like, "Well, that's sweet. She took her friend out, or her daughter's friend, or I don't know, maybe her relation by marriage, took her out for dinner. That's sweet." That's about as far as I think. I wouldn't even think to approach and be like, "Why are you taking her out for dinner? She doesn't look like you." That would never register in my mind. So that night when I took that young man out for dinner, because he needed to be fed, they packed us a cold lunch, but they did not pack us dinner because they thought we'd be back by then, and we were not. And I fed the boy. And they had a problem with stopping and sitting at a booth at McDonald's with him in Nashville, Tennessee. And I thought, you have a problem elsewhere. I don't really care about your problem. I didn't. And that, I think that opened that young man's eyes though, because when they walked away, he goes, "I am so sorry." He goes, that was not right." And I was like, "No, that wasn't right." I was like, "Eat your burger. We're gonna leave before they come back." So I don't know, I've never felt that animosity with any other culture, and sorry, but I don't think I should have had to have felt it that day. I think that was a personal opinion, and that culture has accepted too many personal opinions as the group opinion, and y'all need to talk amongst yourselves to figure out what the crap's going on, because there's no need for it. And that's just where I am on the whole thing. I've got a really good friend. She's black. She got two of the prettiest little girls you ever seen. We live about an hour apart. We don't get to see each other very often. We still keep in contact. She had an emergency come up one day, and literally everybody in her family was busy, and she was like, can you come watch the girls? And I was like, "Honey, if I was feeling better today, I certainly would get in drive and watch the girls." But I said, I'm not capable today. And I said, I apologize. But I said, I feel honored by our friendship that you trust me enough to watch your children. And that doesn't mean color. That just for a friend to ask a friend to watch kids, that's a lot of trust. And if I felt better, I would have totally went right over it. But that was back during one of my really bad spells when I was in the hospital a lot at that point. Matter of fact, we met when I was at the hospital, and we became really fast friends. So I don't know. I just don't understand all of this, and I think a lot of it's because I remove the emotions and I go and I look for stats and I look for conviction rate. I look for patterns in the stats because it's harder to make numbers lie. It's still, you can do it, but it's harder to make numbers lie. Words are easy to twist, numbers less so. Oh, thanks for being me. Some people might not be too thankful. But I do. I look for numbers, when all else fails and people are not going to listen to words, even the prettiest of them, you can't sweet talk them. Then you go to numbers. And so I normally, when I'm thinking about something or researching something that has a lot of emotion attached to it, I go to numbers and I look for patterns. And, the pattern here is they're lethal across the board. Unmatched by any other population in our nation. Their population is more aggressive, more violent toward everybody else and themselves. But what is the kicker here is what they don't look at is how violent they are to their own group. That is completely swept under the rug. And I think that's very important. Because here's the thing, if you don't have respect for like your own family unit, you're not going to respect anyone else. So then that would lead me to think that the family unit has broken down to something that is not repairable. And you're going to have to start at like the base foundational levels with super young people and rebuild that entire family community vibe because it's gone. It's gone. Now, that doesn't mean they won't, pack up like a bunch of hyenas on a carcass and take somebody to the cleaners or, work together for malevolence or malicious intent, because we see that every day. We see it in lots of groups every day. But I think that's a core thing is that if you don't at a base root have love for your own family and your own kind, for lack of a better phrase, how can you walk out of that environment you've been raised in and learn anything else? Because if there's hesitancy at home, there's going to be much more hesitancy afoot. So I think a lot of this is a foundational family community issue that's going to have to be dealt with on the ground floor issue with super young people and a good group of elders that want to reestablish the mindset and renegotiate their standing in this nation and say, no, we don't want to hold, these titles anymore. We don't want to be the most violent group in the nation. We don't want to be the bulk of the criminal offenses. We don't want to have the highest homicide rates, even amongst our own culture only. I mean, that's just crazy. And I mean, they're going to have to rebuild everything that they believe in because they've allowed it to be manipulated for so long that there's nothing worthwhile there. I can scroll again. It's going to mess it up. I apologize. We got a comment that says, I'm 64 and just now learning about looking for patterns. I'm not sure exactly. Yeah, patterns are, if you can see them, you'll start to see them everywhere. If you have a hard time seeing them, it'll be something you never really master. And I'm one of those people that saw them early in life, and it kind of ruins it for me now, you know. But if you don't routinely see patterns, then look at somebody else's research that you believe, you know, is factual, does have good evidence, and then try to break it down even farther so that you don't jump off the swimming board alone. You've got the basis there with you, and that's a good way to start looking for patterns. You know, do it within research data that you know is correct and truth, and then you can kind of swim around in that, knowing that whatever you do find, you know, is found on a firm foundation. Well, yeah, a lot of us were latchkey kids. A lot of us from my generation were latchkey kids. We got home a couple hours before mom and dad did. I know for much of my childhood, I got off the bus at a factory where mom worked when I was tiny. And I would sit there and practice my manuscript and cursive writing at a table, drinking me a bottle of water and eating me a bag of chips. And I'd sit in the rec room at a table and keep myself quiet and wait for my mama to clock out and we'd go home. Or when I got older, I had a key and I got off the bus and I went in the house. And listen, I vacuumed and dusted and did the dishes, and, you know, didn't bother me. It just seemed like part of what I was there to maintain. It was, I lived in the house too. I don't know, you know, and now I'm just going to say something that's going to be really rude, but I will say it's backed up by statistics again, with the welfare recipiency in that regard being so high, with, and there almost always is one full-time parent at home. Whether they choose to stay at home or not is another thing totally. They have the capacity to have children in community, you know, homes being watched daily. You know, they have the capacity to have these kids supervised, to not be raised as latchkey kids. So why aren't they? Aren't your children the most important thing in your world? So why aren't they? See, I do believe that plays a big role in it too. I think one thing that we overlook as a country, as a nation, is the manipulation that our federal government does create to try to dictate and save their own butt. And I think we all need to be looking at that. And right now, I think they're trying to create a race war so that they can get out of everything that they're being found responsible for. Have you read about all the? Hang on, I'm tangled. What is going on here? Have you read about all the countries that are researching the jibby jab and want to come after our nation? Have you not? Oh, you should. Oh, you should. Other countries putting warrants out for Just that reason. I mean, there are places now, people from our nation that had a role in that can never visit. They don't seem to be too worried about it. It would hurt me if another part of the world thought I manipulated for gain, something so heinous as that. It would bother me. I don't think it bothers these people at all. Okay, now he's fat enough. We're gonna start bringing him back in. I'm gonna mark where I start reducing him though, so I don't over reduce. But anyway, there's a lot going wrong on so many levels. But if you've got somebody that is so self-important, they're not going to notice. And I think that we've got a lot of people that are so self-important that they're not going to notice. And then, but I think a lot of people are making a change to wake up and pay attention now. I think that's great. I think a lot of people are going, now hang on a daggum minute. There's something here. We need to pay attention. Yes, we do. We need to pay attention. We need not be stupid. We need to care about other people regardless the make, model, and rendition. We need to care about other people. Parents need to parent. You need to know what your kids are listening to, reading, portraying. You need to understand. And in this social media age, you need to understand their media consumption so that you know what they're being shown as normal. And I hate that kids go on these platforms and think that they're watching someone else be normal. Like somebody from New York would watch a homesteading channel and think that, oh, this is how people that homestead, this is normal. It is not. They romanticize everything. They lie about everything. And if you show the real truth behind homesteading, they'll take your channel. Whoa. So a lot of people watch Isabel Page, and they think that is what living off grid is like. And I'm like, the girl never shows you any of the hard work really that goes with it unless it's going to benefit her in some way. She hides a lot of the work that has to happen to live off grid. And a lot of people, I watched this one family that said, we were inspired to go and live off grid. Well, then they didn't realize that, number one, it would be so expensive to, dig a well. Number two, there would be so many state ordinances against being off grid and tiny homes. And it's because you didn't see the truth about it. Nobody showed you a truthful, example. And I know that seems like an awful simple thing to base this off of, but if it happens with things as simple as getting a tiny home and going off grid, imagine what other people cover up and what other people are missing because they think everything is supposed to be just that simple. And I'm like, no, it's not that simple. Nothing is that simple. I had a friend one time, I worked at a stable, and she was like, well, I'd like to work at that stable. And she set up for an interview Saturday. I had to only work like 4 hours that Saturday. And so the barn owner said, well, why don't you just bring her to work with you? And I'll talk to her, and then she can kind of see what you do every day and be ready to roll if I hire her. And I was like, okay, that sounds good. So that's what I did. And she was all excited to go to the barn with me that Saturday and to talk to the owner. So she went. As soon as we got there, I, dropped her at the barn office, and I was like, listen, I've got to go feed. So I'll be back in an hour. And that gave them about enough time to have an interview. So I went and fed. Took about an hour. Because I had to feed like 3 barns, like 4 big paddocks where we had mares out with colts and then other mares that were in to be bred. And it's just a lot of mouths to feed. Picked her up in about an hour. I was already nasty and covered in crap because I'd been through 15 gates and how many horses? 400 something horses. And so then I'm like, she's like, well, what are we doing today? And I was like, well, the bulk of each day is spent cleaning stalls because we clean at least 30 stalls independently each day. And with that number of each of us cleaning about 30 stalls, we get through every stall each day, and then we do a rotation of the ones that we're going to strip and lime and then rebed. And she's like, okay. And I didn't let her work because obviously she was employed, but she just kind of shadowed and hung around. And she was like, so when are we going to ride? I only rarely do I help saddle anything up, because she's got the assistant trainer, and then she's got a couple of girls that are in her lessons that she'll then let them ride for extra, you know, extra lessons. And I said, so I only saddle up if we got a problem horse or we got too many to handle. And I was like, I am mostly the grunt work. This is mostly what you'll do. And well, then we had, right in the middle of that, we had an owner show up, and I said, I said, you see that on the camera? I said, we got an owner showing up that wasn't scheduled to be here for their horse. I said, they're probably wanting to ride. I said, let's go pull that horse and get that horse ready for that owner. I just saw it on the camera and knew what was going to happen because I worked there so long. So I went and pulled that horse. It was a hateful horse. He was not the nicest horse. I lunged him for a minute, got his cantankerous out. Yeah, I can't talk today. His cantankerous behavior out, and was saddling him. And I mean, I was covered in manure at that point, covered in grass, and sweet feed have stuck to me where I fed all them horses and gone through all them gates, and because I had to ride a 4-wheeler and feed everything and go through gates and stuff. And then, we've been cleaning stalls, and the manure spreader didn't want to spread the first load, so we had to fix the manure spreader. I was covered in rust. I was nasty. And here I was saddling this horse. And got it almost saddled when here come the owner down the hallway, and he was like, oh, thanks. And I was like, yeah, I saw you on the camera. Figured he's coming to ride. Thought I'd get him ready. And he's like, yeah, last time I had to find you to saddle him, and it kind of slowed down my enjoyment for the day. I said, I know. I said, I'm sorry. I was the only one working that day. I said, but here, he's ready for you today. And that's why they're supposed to register, and make appointments when they're going to come ride their own horse. They board at this crazy expensive facility, and they're supposed to basically make a time slot for when they're going to come ride their animal, visit their animal, so that we can have them out, have them groundworked, have them saddled. Because these people that own these horses don't understand that if you just were to pull this horse out of the stall and jump on it, it'd probably buck you off. These are high-bred horses. What you don't see is we pull them out and we clean them up and we tack them up and we groundwork them and we get through their animosity, and then we hand them over to you when they're in work mode. And so at the end of the day, after all that, we were fixing to leave, and here come the trainer, and he goes, did the boys not turn the back? Sorry. Did the boys not turn the back manure pile? And I was like, I told them to last Friday. And he goes, it's smoking. I said, crap, because if you leave a manure pile and you don't rotate it, it will eventually combust. So you have to rotate it. I said, well, crap. I said, hang on, I'll get it. So then I was supposed to be leaving, but I couldn't leave because we had a manure pile fixing to go up in flames. So I had to get in the front end loader and go and dig out the smoke, dampen this part that was about to combust, and then renegotiate the pile so it cooled itself down. And then I climb into my vehicle to go, like an hour and a half too late. It's a lot of work. Yeah. She goes, and you don't get to do anything that's fun. I said, anything that you do has got a lot that's not fun first. And she was like, I just don't think I really want to work there. And I was like, I thought you loved horses and you wanted to have a job around horses. Well, I do, but more like, I don't know, working with kids that need to ride them and therapy and stuff. And I said, well, you still have to take care of the horse. So I think a lot of people have these rose-colored glasses in life to a lot of things. I lived an interesting life. I learned to do a lot of grunt work so that I could do grunt work to pay for like college and to pay for other things I wanted to do. It was just normal. It's just normal. When you live in the sticks, you turn your hand to anything so that, you can do anything. But, I mean, obviously her mom and dad was the ones at home that took care of the barn because she had a couple of horses. But obviously she was not the one cleaning stalls or doing the maintenance because she did not anticipate or know what the maintenance was at a barn. And so by the end of the day, I was like, well, that may be a good thing because I would have had to have watched her like a hawk, trained her, worried about her getting hurt, So even these girls that in college would show up at a show and ride a barrel horse, they didn't know how to maintain a farm. They didn't know how to maintain a horse. They didn't know anything about farm life, how dirty it was. And I was like, everything you do, it's got prep work. There's a lot of work to be done before the fun happens. I don't know. It's our whole society just does not. I don't know. They just don't want to work. I don't know. They just don't want to apply themselves. Want to easy out. Want to be a victim instead of a victor. They want to have somebody to malign and instead of a friend. And I'm just like, this seems very counterproductive. But it's what I see, so I talk about it. But I really do think that some higher levels in our government probably were thinking, "Oh, hey, a race war would help out right now. They would stop looking at us." I really do think that they're trying to pitch that one again. And and then you've got such so many people in the cultural movements that play along with that. And it's like stop fanning the flames. There's no reason to fan the flames, and it used to be like that. And people say, well, why aren't the natives super mad? Well, I'm going to tell you something about the natives that you probably don't know and you won't really talk about a whole lot. In some states, a lot of natives were kind of coerced to leave their homes. In others, their homes were bought and paid for. The land was negotiated between the government and the chief accepted. Maybe it was a bribe, maybe it was a good monetary amount, I don't know. The chief accepted it. In history, if you go back and you look, and especially in like the documents of the tribes themselves, it will show a lot of the deals made with the governments around the time. And many, I'm not saying that the governments didn't do some pretty skeezy things, but a lot of the tribes and a lot of the tribes chiefs made out like bandits and basically said, sure, we'll move. I'm going to get that much money. I'm going to get that much land. Oh, I can stay here with X amount of my own family and send everybody else out, and you'll pay me this much. So, yeah, there were some backroom deals made, and there were a lot of chiefs that got rich and sent their tribes west. There were a lot of tribes members that were also at the same time allowed to sell their land and make good money. It wasn't like everybody was absolutely forced off. People benefited from it, and sadly, some people didn't care and sold their own kind out, and some people did care and made good deals. It really depended on who your chief was and who your tribe was. So, and the natives talk about that at length, where, a lot of land was just sold because they thought the land out west was, a good opportunity to, start over, bankroll some money, get an area that had turned into turmoil, and I'm not saying that there was no conniving going on or no coercion, but a lot of the chiefs were sitting in the rooms when the government came up with the ideas. A lot of them had their finger in the pie to say, well, if you offer the tribe X amount of money, well, who gets that money? Well, me as the chief would handle it. Now we know why you're in the meeting. But and some of the chiefs looked out for the tribes and some did not. But not all of them were rounded up like little ingrates and marched to die. Actually, I think there were very few that actually passed away in transit to new lands. And they certainly weren't marched by the government. They all took their own tribes and took their own routes. It's very strange. It's very strange. Unless the chief asked for help or an escort, the government let them kind of negotiate it on their own. And this is all common knowledge, amongst tribes, but it's taught very differently in school. And maybe, I don't know, maybe Cherokee just talk about it more because, they chose to stay. A lot of the chiefs and the tribes chose to not give up property and to stay. And now, they function as their own entity within our nation. They struck a good bargain. Maybe the other ones just did not. I mean, the Eastern Band Cherokee struck a really good bargain. They're the richest, tribe in the nation. Like, it's just, it's not common knowledge, but it's knowledge that you can find if you get out there. Well, a lot of people don't read, and so they don't hear but more than one way that something happened, and they think that's the only way it happens. And a lot of people don't know to go and look for other stuff. So I've always been kind of mesmerized by how people will hear one thing and think that's like the only story to the event. And I'm like, there were how many millions of people lived this event? There's more than one story. So far, we made them fat. Now we're bringing them back down. And when possums hang upside down, a lot of their bulk is up toward their front, so he's going to be front heavy. That's to make his head attach and make his head look right. He's going to have to be front heavy. And then I'll make his legs and sew his legs on later. I've got to find a better stitch for that lion's mane though, because that's going to drive me nuts. I don't think that looks good stitched like that. So I'm going to have to find something else to do it. This will be cute. It's going to be pretty big too. It's going to be pretty big. It's going to go down to about right here. And then I'll put his head on. So yeah, hold a lot of bags because it's really fat. And so what I'm going to do right now is we're going to start where the pouch is. So we're on the back because here's where you put the bags in. So we're on the back. We're going to, let me take that one out. Going to chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's bad. Skip 8, start again in the 9th. And this will be the bag where you can put your hand in and pull out or the hole where you put your hand in and pull out a bag. And you want to make it big enough that they can get their fingers in to get a bag, but not too big to where multiple bags will fall out at once. Does that make sense? Because nothing makes me more mad when I try to get a bag out of my bag holder and 15,000 come out instead of the one that I grabbed hold of, because the opening's too large. That's what irritates me. So if you want a possum bag holder, yell at me. He's going to hang up. That's why I made the loop. He can hang. And then I'm going to add an extra thing here. It's going to be like a pouch cover, and it'll look like a big pouch. And so when they put their hand in here, it looks like they're actually going in a big pouch. You don't just see a little hole. Got to make it look good. So that's what I'm doing. I don't want to have to stuff it and unstuff it. I just want to take it to the lady that wants it. I don't want to stuff it and unstuff it. I might. We'll see. See how much time I have later. I was going to be like, here, I'm done. And then get back and start on something else. I'll take pictures. In case anybody wants one, I'll take pictures and stuff it and show it to y'all. But if y'all want one of these, just yell at me. I do crochet them rather tight so that they last, though. So, because this is obviously something you're going to have to wash every once in a while and take care of. And oh, thank you. It does look like a bowling pin cover, doesn't it? Maybe it's something else I need to make for bowlers. I've never made one, but I mean, I can. I know I see a picture in my head of what it should look like, so I probably could hack one up. I mean, it'd be cute. I just have to look at a picture of a rubber chicken But if anybody that popped in late hasn't seen the Boomer doll, this is the Boomer doll finished. So he's gonna go live with Charlie. I think he probably would stand up on his own. I just think he turned out very cute. I think I'm gonna make a hippie Boomer doll. But I think he probably will be the only other one I make, though. But if you want a Boomer doll, you're more than welcome to email me, watersworkload@gmail.com, or go to Dave's Etsy at Hillbilly Heart Decor and say, hey, yell at Elizabeth, I want a Boomer doll. If you don't have an Etsy account, you can pay on PayPal. That's fine. We'll mail it out to you. But I don't want to make like a bunch of these and then have nobody interested. So if you're interested, let me know and I'll, you can either pay for it up front or you can put a deposit down or whatever, and then I'll get it done and send it to you. But I'm tickled with how he came out. I'm going to make the hippie Boomer and I'm going to put him in flip-flops. I'll have to kind of deal with the rest of it and look at him as I make him to see what else I want him in, but I'm definitely going to put him in flip-flops. So, and there's a flip-flop pattern, and I'll have to make him and then sew the bottom onto his foot. But there's a little flip-flop pattern made for like kids, but I'll just have to shrink it down to fit the foot of a doll. That's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. So it is really like I make like real clothes, like the arms, thankfully, you made the arms as the sleeves on that doll. But everything else, like I started out and made the sweater like a really top-down raglan sweater. Made the pants like you would actually make pants for somebody. Made the shoes like you would make baby shoes. And it was just like, wow, this is kind of tedious. It's kind of fun, though, because it teaches you a lot of skills at once. But, yeah, I just need to make sure I'm not wasting my time when I make one and that it's going to go somewhere. So I'm thinking I might make a Sabrina doll in that smaller yarn as well. Just because I really like the way that smaller yarn worked out. Yeah, it's more work for me because it's a little bit more tedious, but I really like the way it turned out. So I want to make at least one to see what it would look like in that smaller yarn. So, but if you're interested in them, please let me know. And if somebody out there is waiting for me to get it done, just let me know you want it and I'll bump it to the front and get it done quickly for you. So while I've got the yarn, I don't mind to stay focused. I just don't want to focus if they're not, they're not going anywhere. This is where my eyesight is a crapshoot. My blanket yarn twisted and I can't see what I'm doing there. There were times I had to use I got a magnifying reader, a page reader that you hold over a page. I had to go get it when I was working on certain parts of that doll so I could see what the crap I was doing. I'm blind, y'all. I'm blind. You need a Princess Leia wig for your Chihuahua. I actually think they sell those, don't they? I think you can buy those. Seems like I've seen a Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia dog costume before. Leave it to me to say that. But I swear I think I have. I swear I think I've seen one. You really need earmuffs for your Chihuahua? You'd have to measure the Chihuahua's head so I know how big they needed to be. So I know how big they need to be. Because what it does when they make them is they make like it looks like a little ski mask for people, and they leave the hole where the dog's face can come out, and then you put everything else onto that goes over the dog's whole head. It's a yes, I've looked at them because I thought that would probably be something that would sell at strange places. I've looked at several of those, and then I looked at making Bjorn one, but then I ended up ordering him that crown because I saw that crown online, and I was like, Bjorn needs a crown. Which Bjorn he did look pretty in his crown. Oh yeah, there's been kids shooting fireworks all here for the last couple weeks. As soon as anybody leaves the county to go to a store or the first tent pops up here, it just turns into a war zone every night. But I mean, kids don't. At least it's rained recently. There's been a couple years when Fourth of July has happened, and I've wondered if they needed to put a ban because it's been so dry. But I'm not worried about that this year. It's sopping wet out now. And we've had so much rain the last couple weeks. The last week has been remarkably rainy. You know, if that's hanging in the back, you might not need a flap cover. I don't know. I'll look at that later and see if I'm going to make a flap cover or not. The only thing I really changed on this possum is I put the pouch opening a little bit farther down than it would be on their body, but that's just so you can actually, if you don't have it that many bags, so that you can actually reach a bag and not have to go elbow deep into the possum. That sounded really bad. That sounded really, really, really bad. It's shaping on down. It's coming down. I think it'll be cute. It'll hold a lot of bags when I get it done. And it will also allow for expansion because it's blanket yarn. It will stretch really good. And so it will allow, you can cram it pretty full. Like mine that I have now, the fabric has no give. And so you can't like you come to a certain point where you're done. That's all you can put in there. Yeah, people that don't know that manure will combust, I guess they don't know that it needs to be turned. I guess this girl, she probably had picked a few stalls, but I guess her parents were the majority of the workforce at her barn because I guess they did the grunt work and she just rode. They set her on the horse to ride. And if you are a barrel racer and you're at the high school level, you probably are spending a lot of your time riding. I'm not knocking that. You're going to spend a lot of your time exercising your horse and riding your horse and creating a bond with that horse. But if you're just a small family that has a couple of horses they let their daughter rodeo at school, you should still probably know how to pick a stall, what your horse is eating, how long certain things take, the side the side quest and barn ownership, you should probably know. She didn't know how to fix the mirror spreader when it's stuck. She didn't know how to put the chain back on. She didn't know how to drive the tractor. And I was like, these are all things that you should probably know if you own a barn or horses or, and or at this level of competition. These are skills you should have mastered. So that was kind of one of those moments, I don't know, but I guess maybe I was lucky because when I was young, Dad worked at a bunch of really big barns. And so I kind of got to see the goings on and the runnings, and I got to help sometimes. And so I knew a barn took a lot of work, but I'd also, kept my own barn going. So it wasn't like I didn't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a weirdo. I pay attention to the internal workings instead of just the fun times. I don't know, but for me, a lot of the time I enjoyed at the barn was the quiet time when I was either just like taking care of horses that had grooming needs or taking care of the messy work in the barn with the radio on late on a summer night. So it was cool when I had to do the heaviest of the grunt work. I still have a memory of one night. It was super late. It had been super hot all day. I decided to, um, after my morning classes, to rest in the afternoon, and then I was going to get up and go and work the evening into the night at the barn when it was cooler because it was so hot that summer. And I had gotten to the barn and turned on the radio, only turned on like every third or fourth light switch. So it was just, I could see what I was doing, but I wasn't like, I didn't have the whole barn at full tilt. Turned me on a little radio where I could hear it and just went to cleaning stalls in the late evening, watched some storms roll in from the heat lightning to actual storms roll in, a little bit of rain. It finally cooled it down. I cleaned stalls till way up in the morning, then went home, slept, and got up the next day and did my morning classes. And those are some of my best memories. Quiet nights cleaning stalls, or quiet nights shining, polishing tack, getting ready for them to, take a 17 horse slant trailer on a big rig across the nation to the finals event out west. And those are some of my favorite memories. So I just don't know. Can you miss all that and still effectively be a barn rat? Because she said she was a barn rat. And I was like, okay, you're a barn rat. But I ended up hiring another girl before I left. The barn owner said, can you find somebody to replace you? And I was like, sure. One of the girls, again, rodeo team, wanted that position. And I got it for her. And this was when I left, when I was moving out of the county. And called back a few months later to check in. And the owner had called me to ask if I would come and babysit the horses while they went to another show out west. And I called back and I was like, well, is that girl not working out? She goes, oh, she was scared of the horses. She left. Now, if you ride quarter horses that are big tanks and you're scared of a Paso Fino, which is a very small, in contrast horse, I don't know. I was like, she was scared of the Pasos? Really? I mean, some of them have, anger issues, but all horses are like that. They can be moody sometimes. But yeah, I was just like, she's like, Liz, we can't replace you. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I kept in touch with her for a long time. She's a very sweet person. The name of the farm was Mardana Paso Fino Farms. Then I went and worked at Hacienda Nueva Vida. Somehow I always ended up in Paso Farms. And they weren't like anything I enjoyed. It just, that was what was popular at the moment, I guess, in that area that I was in. Oh no. And I tried to not tell anybody whose daughter I was, because if they heard Dad's name, you could almost see him salivate. So I tried to never tell them whose daughter I was. Saddle soap. Some of them smell good and some of them stink. I was always really easy with my saddles. I just kept them clean daily, but then I'd go in with some Needs Footle or something and shine them up a little bit if I needed to. I never used a whole lot of saddle soap. But I went through a lot in those barns. They used a whole lot of it, I swear. But also, they rode English a lot in the trading barns. And those saddles have a higher contact with the horse, and they foam up and get real nasty sometimes. So, when I said foam up and get real nasty, everybody that's seen a horse working hard knows exactly what that looks like when the saddle touches and it foams up. And you want to keep that leather supple so it doesn't hurt that animal. Goodness gracious. This is not taking forever, but I guess it's because I'm making it up as I go that I'm like, is it ever going to end? Probably not, because I'm making it up as I go. Well, we're getting there. We're getting there. This would be cute if you like had your bathroom done in like a wilderness motif, and you had like those little cotton rounds you kept to take your I can take your face off, your makeup off every night with. You could make one and put your cotton rounds into it, make a tiny one and hang it from your mirror or something, or bathroom cabinet or something, and not have to go digging for those little rounds every night. That'd be cute. Or you could even put cotton balls in there, I guess. I guess. Okay, I've got them evened up now. Now we're evened up. Yeah, I think I need to turn on the AC. It's getting warmer again here. It was cold last night here. Green spittle, yeah. When they start, well, that's when they start frothing its mouth. But when the saddle and the saddle and the martingale, the chest strap will touch them when they're working hard and it'll foam up and lather them up. And then you got to wipe the horse down and the saddle. You're like, wow. But yeah, when they start rolling that bit and doing this because they're working and they're high strung, and then they get to slobbering and yeah, especially if they've had alfalfa. Lord have mercy. They sling their head and it looks like everybody's got snot all over them. When I worked there, they would go on a show ring. I'd always keep an old T-shirt in my back pocket. And if the judge ever, especially when they were fixing to turn and reverse, but if the judge ever, for any reason, slowed down the class, then the riders were always told to find me where I was standing, and because I'd whip my T-shirt out and reach over the fence and wipe the horse's mouth off real good. Just because lots of times they'll also reverse the class right before they line them up, just to slow everybody down and stop everybody, and then they'll do a reverse, and then in like 5 seconds they'll say line up. And so on that last reverse, I try to always catch them and wipe that horse's face, because what we would do is always tell our riders to hang back, and after everybody parks out and gets over there, then you go and make one last pass in front of that judge and go park yourself at the very end of that line. You want one last chance to display your animal where you have his undivided attention. And so I'd always want to try to catch them and wipe their face down for that last pass in front of that judge. So I'd always be hanging out at the ring, if possible. Some rings you weren't able to; they were too big. And I'd always be hanging out waiting to wipe a nose or a mouth, so they could make that last pass in front of that judge and show their animal off. I was such a barn rat when I was little. It was fun, though. It was lots of fun. I learned a lot of skills that kept me going. Learned not to think jobs were always fun, because even as much as I loved being at the barn, there was crap at the barn I did not want to do, but it had to be done, so you did it. I know when I was little, I would always get put at the old Ringer washing machine to wash all the leg wraps and stuff for the horses. And I'd be there for a long time washing them things, because then you'd have to roll them through the dryer and then hang them up. But I learned at a young age that just, there's crap that had to be done before you got to enjoy the animal. So I guess it was a good lesson to learn, regardless if I wanted to learn it or not. I did, so I guess it stuck with me. But I had fun growing up in barns. Yeah, prep work is it just has to be done. And hey, if you're at a place in your game where you no longer have to do the prep work and you have people to do the prep work for you, that's great. Kudos to you. That's awesome. But most of us aren't there and don't live there, so. And I just think that young people probably still need to learn a little bit about prep work. And there's prep work and everything, even in just simply growing up. There's prep work. I don't know. Maybe that's the theme of today's talk. Prep work. It's everywhere, even in life. Just a lot of crap you've got to learn to, maneuver through this world. I don't know. Maybe we've just got certain percentages of the population not teaching the prep work anymore, or we've got parents that are too soft on their kids, so their kids are not learning the prep work anymore. I don't know. We need to be working on the prep work, the foundation crap, especially within our society. Because I would like to see a news story just be a news story instead of a cultural event or a racist diatribe. I would just like to see a news story be a news story and us actually just be appalled at the loss of a human life, no matter what color they were. I don't think that's too much to ask. I would just like for us to, only clutch our proverbial pearls when absolutely they had to be clutched instead of making up all this animosity and feeding it to our younger people and really raising them blind and making them useless. When they're older, they're useless. And listen, you may not think you owe anything to society, but you're going to affect it just being within it. So, one drop of oil in water renders all the water nasty. One rotten apple in the barrel makes all the other apples taste funny. Whether you think about it or not, you affect everything and everyone else around you. And at some point in your life, you should at least be taught to acknowledge that so that you do think like that from time to time so that you don't screw other people over. But, everybody wants to say, well, I'm an individual. I don't. Yes, but we all make up humanity and we all affect humanity. I'm sure that boy, when for whatever reason he decided to take his knife out and go after that young man, I'm sure he wasn't thinking that this was going to affect anyone but him. And here we are, our entire nation has got its panties in a twist. And we're going back 200 years to talk about things that doesn't matter anymore. And, we're stuck in this victim mentality. And we're twisting his behaviors into something that we want them to be so they're useful. Sometimes people's behaviors are not useful. They're just stupid behaviors. Sometimes people just make mistakes and we have to go, well, that was stupid, and go on. And we have to say, you affect other people. Be better, do better, instead of how can we turn this around to where it looks like he had to do this? How can we save face? No, stop that crap. Let it be a lesson rather than a manipulation. I guess that's where I'm at too. Is I'm tired of this manipulation we're seeing from everybody, everything, every corner of the field. It's just like, leave me alone. They want you to be all up in arms about this alien thing and believe them. Well, listen, you've lied to the public so many times, I don't know whether to believe you or not. But here's the thing. If they have been real the whole time I've been on this earth, well, I've been on here for half a century. They ain't never bothered me. Why should I give a fart now? Oh, because you want me running scared and okaying any new surveillance. Oh yeah, we need all the surveillance now. We got aliens. Listen. When you start finding missing kids, I'll believe you that you need more surveillance. But until then, I don't think your surveillance does crap. You start finding some missing kids, missing people, okay, we'll talk. Until then, I'm sorry. You're telling me to believe one possible fiction to keep you in business. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I don't think that's how it's going to go. Just don't think that's how it's going to go. Oh, yeah. Go out and look for bird nest after bad winds. Lots of times birds will come back and reuse nests. Lots of times they do, or other birds will use them. That's why when we were at barns and stuff, we never moved the bird nests. Unless it was like in a very bad spot. We never touched them because we knew that birds came back and used them often. Okay, there's the whole body. So you put the bags in here. Now its head's going to hang off down here in its front paws. This is where you stick your hand in to get a bag. It's down closer to the head than up here because the bulk of the bag's going to be down here, but it still looks like you're going in its belly to get bags. I'll put the head on here. I'll kind of sew it on like this. So it'll still be hanging down, but it'll be kind of looking up. And then I normally put the feet off to the side. So when it lays on the wall, the feet splay outside or up against the cabinet. The feet go sideways. So when I get it done, I'll show you. But this is the body and the tail, the holes. The feet will go out sideways and the head will go on down here. And I'll kind of sew it up like this where it's kind of looking, but it will still kind of hang like it's hanging in a tree. Yeah, it'll hold quite a bit. It's as big as my bag holder in my kitchen, if not a little bit bigger. So a pink yarn has gotten everywhere. It's come apart and gotten everywhere. Okay, so I've got to make a head now. Where did I put my white yarn? Oh, it's over on the floor. It fell out of my basket. I'm going to have to go get my white yarn. I think it'd be cute. I think it'd be really cute. I may end up having to make me one. Every time I make one, somebody else wants them. I may have to make my own. I mean, it's giving me time to kind of tweak my pattern and put it just right. But at some point, I'm going to have to make one for me that stays in my house. I know. If y'all want a possum bag, let me know. If y'all want a Booma doll, let me know. These take a lot of work, but I don't care to make them. If somebody will like say, yes, I want that and dedicate. If you want to prepay, you can prepay. That makes me feel better because I know it is going to be purchased. You're not going to like change your mind and walk away from it. That makes me feel better. But they are 20 plus hours of my life that you're getting for a remarkably cheap price. It uses more yarn than you think. But it's very fine needlework. Hook work. And a lot of embroidery too, so. But then if Sabrina does watch this, I'm getting your line done, but it looks like an alien right now because I don't have its snout or its mouth on, and or its tail or its mane. And it honestly, when I got here, I was like, that looks like a Neopet from back in the day. Y'all remember Neopets? Oh, I used to play that a lot. This looks like a Neopet from back in the day. But it does stand. It is one of those freestanding patterns, which always blows my mind how you can make something that stands. Because I think every time I'm stuffing it at work, I'm like, that's not gonna work. And it works. This one's for Sabrina. She's got a specific reason for wanting this. I forget what it is. I just know that she wanted a lion with a green heart on its butt. And so I gave it green sparkly eyes too. So, and it's a freestanding pattern, which always blows my mind. These are actually, I mean, you know, they're not super big. The legs are a pain in the butt to make, but they're not super big. It's worsted weight. So if it was blanket yarn, it would be like 4 times as big, but it's worsted weight. But if you want a line, I've got extra yarn. You can get a line too. They'll be at like 25 plus shipping. And they do stand. They're very well made. They do stand. It's worsted weight. Worsted weight. I think worsted weight displays better than blanket yarn, but blanket yarn is like kids want to hug the blanket yarn more. But the worsted weight for people that like the way they display, I like a worsted weight for display because they hold their own. Obviously, they stand better too. So he's gonna be cute though. I don't know. Yeah, this is cute. I don't know why Sabrina. She wanted it for somebody, but I can't remember who. I don't remember. I'm gonna have to go back and look at her messages because I just remember she wanted a line with a green heart on its butt, and so I gave it green eyes. But it's cute. It's cute. So yeah, she kind of designed this, but it's cute. So I'm gonna get the mane on and the nose and the snout and the tail, and it will stop looking like a Neopet and start looking like a lion at that point. But I think it reminds me of Neopets so much right now, so much. There were like little animals you could adopt and play games and stuff. And this is what it reminds me of. So, but I do like this little pattern. I do like the little pattern. I mean, the legs, you're trying to get your hook around all these 3 legs when you're doing the last one, it's a little irritating, but I do like this little pattern. I've made it a few times now, and it always, it's fun. It's like you get farther than you realize you are. Pulled polyfill into it when I was sewing its belly up, and its belly looks like it's got white spots because the polyfill's coming out. You get farther than you think you are because each row is a little bit different, and so by the time you notice where you're at, it's almost done, and so it's doesn't feel like it takes forever because you really get like in the zone when you make it because you have to pay attention. But he's cute. I mean, he looks like an alien right now, but he's cute. He'll be cute when I get him finished. He'll be very cute. Okay, possum bag, Booma doll, lion, Sabrina doll. I can make another. If you want, YouTube, stop trying to reconnect me. If you want any of those things, possum bags, possums, all those things, let me know. watersworkload@gmail.com or go to David's Etsy, which is Hillbilly Heart Decor, and message David and say, hey, y'all, Elizabeth, can I get a, whatever you want. Well, Neopets were, it came out in like the 2000s, and I think you can actually still go play it. I'm not sure. I haven't looked in. There was a couple years there. They had some good hand-eye coordination games. So when the kids were little, they would sit in my lap and we would play Neopets every day because it helped with counting. It had some very simple games. It had some more complex games for older users as well. But I used it for like colors and counting and hand-eye coordination. And we would sit there and play a game or two in the evening. And I just thought it was a really cute little website, and it had cute little games. And it was, I used it for, putting in with what we did with the kids every day. Haley, when she was born at 3 weeks, had a really bad episode where she about choked on, she had her flap on her stomach was not formed. And we had the hardest time with that child. And she spewed one night and about choked herself. I mean, it was bad. And we ended up in the hospital because she actually turned blue. She did choke. Like, I barely got the child breathing again. I still remember that night, and it still gives me goosies when I remember that night. And we ended up in the hospital for a week because they were trying to change the medicine she was on to a better medicine because she was just Mount Vesuvius. She was all the time puking. And they told me for a long time that she may be behind a little bit because the time she went without oxygen. Like, they had prepped me for her to have issues. And I think I overcompensated because, she graduated from college with a 4.2 because she did extracurricular work when she didn't need to. It's my child. But I also overcompensated when she was young. And we did sign language. And we just did everything with the kids, just trying to get her ahead of the game because I thought she was going to have problems when she got to school, but she didn't. She never did. But, I'm a mom. Moms overreact, so there I went. So I used any tool I could use to get her ahead, and I think I overdid it. So and I didn't do it to just one kid. It just, I had to do it with one. The other one was doing it too, so they both got in on it. So that's what I did. My kids are 27 and 28. I had to think. I had to count. 27 and 28. So yeah, that was back around the turn. And we were just doing a lot of stuff to try to make sure she wasn't going to have any issues. It's terrifying when doctors say that to you and you're like, holy crap. We had a kid that we thought we were going to have tummy issues with, and then it morphed into possibly something else. And that was it was a scary time there for a little while until I knew she was fine. She wasn't a big talker, so she did not want to talk when she was young at all. So yeah, I'm there with you. She didn't want to talk at all. She just had nothing to say. She's still very quiet to a fault until she has something to say. And then one day she was climbing up on the sofa. She got her foot between the cushions and it pulled her sock off. And she plopped down and looked at her sock stuck between the cushions. She goes, Mama, my sock came off. And I thought, kid, you don't talk and then you spit out a whole sentence. But but she didn't speak unless she had something worth saying. And then bad me, I taught my kids like normal words in sign language, all the colors in sign language. Lane broke his arm when he was little. He lives his life up trees now. We should have seen that one coming. But when they were asking him what color cast he wanted, he was signing orange, and they were like, "Well, what color does he want?" He needs to tell me. I said, "He's told you 5 times he wants orange." Then they were like, "Oh, I don't know sign language." I'm like, "Oh, sorry." Like, he wants orange. He had a big orange cast, and that child was rambunctious to a fault. Lord have mercy. He was a handful. He still is. He was a handful. They sent him home. They sent me home a little tiny bottle of pain medicine, and said if he looks like he's hurting or he acts like he's hurting, give him a little bit of pain medicine. And they called the next day to check on him, and that was when we had phones that were actually stuck to the wall. You remember those days? And they were like, "How's he going to check on him and see how he was doing?" And I was like, "He's doing great. He's not had a problem." And I said, "Oh, hang on." And I had to drop the phone because he had saw me on the phone, and he was watching Tarzan, a Disney movie. And we were trying to have a quiet afternoon and let Sissy sleep. And we were trying to watch Tarzan, in the living room while Sissy was behind us in the bedroom snoring. And he saw me on the phone and thought he was going to get up on the back of the couch and do a Tarzan yell and then jump. He was tiny. He was a toddler. And I had to drop the phone and go catch him. And the nurse was like, "What happened?" And when I told her that, she's like, "Oh, no, he's fine. He doesn't need any medicine." I was like, "No, I've not had to give him any. He's fine." It's like if he's doing the Tarzan on the back of the sofa and about to jump, I don't think he's having any problems with his arm. Well, I just got to keep him from breaking the other one. I like bright colors. He likes bright colors too. Of course, he's got flaming red hair, so that's probably why he likes bright colors. He looks like a leprechaun when he's up a tree. Don't tell him I said that. He will get mad. But he does. All right, I think I'm done. If y'all want something, yell at me. I'm going to probably pop on throughout this week as I'm doing stuff. I'm doing a lot of closet clean out for a friend. I'm doing a lot of just getting my craft stuff in order since we've got a space now between other markets. I'm kind of going through my craft stuff and getting it situated. And if I have a task where I can actually prop y'all up and do the task while I'm visiting, then I'll try to do it. But I'm just doing a lot of maintenance stuff this week. A lot of maintenance stuff this week. He does. He looks like a leprechaun. He would not like me saying that, but he does. That's what he looks like. So, okay, me and my Texas hair are going to take a break and probably turn on the AC units because it's getting a little warm. I don't know. It's not that bad. If I'm not wrestling yarn, it's pleasant, so I may just let it sit. But I'm going to take a break, try to find me something to nibble, and then I'm going to make dinner and get through this day. Today's been kind of a day where I've sat and worked on crochet and just kind of had to focus on a few things that needed to get done. So I appreciate yous. I may go ahead and put one mystery Boomer doll on David's Etsy, so if somebody wants it, they can go ahead and buy it, and that way I can just immediately make it. I'll have to do like a 7 to 10 day, give me that much of a gap to make it, so I'll have to set it up in Etsy to where if you buy it, it gives me 7 to 10 days to make it before I have to mail it. But I may go ahead and put one up for purchase because I know I can handle one right now. But beyond that, if you see something I'm making that you want, you're just yell at me, email me, put it in a comment under a video, or go on to Dave's Etsy at Hillbilly Heart Decor and message and just get it to me somehow and we'll get you into the lineup. I will. I'll let Dave know you said hello. So I'm going to get busy and finish a couple things and rest before I make dinner. So I'm feeling so much better. So appreciate the prayers. Also, Gypsy is through her surgery resting. Everything seemed to went pretty smooth this morning. She got out of surgery around 10 a.m. And I messaged a couple hours ago and asked if she had slept off the anesthesia yet. Because, bless her heart, probably not. If I get a check-in, I'll try to just kind of give you a thumbs up. But so far, everything seems good and not hurt anything. That's your worry. So just keep your prayers up. She is still, gonna have quite a road to handle this. So just keep her in your thoughts and prayers. But so far, so good. So that's good. That's been a positive thing that's happened today. Thanks, Sal. We appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to shut up. Y'all have a wonderful day, and I will talk to y'all soon. Bye, guys.